Nirvana Prakarana, the Transcendence. Chapter 9, the story of Chudala. Winter had set in. The morning was particularly beautiful, with the smoke of the village huts moving up lazily towards the heavens. The mist in the air blending with the smoke as if in courtship. The feathered songsters with their feathers filled with air appeared fat, and the rising sun got involved with smog and mist in a playful wrestle which ended in the surrender of the mist to the inexhaustible source of energy. The animals too were calling their masters to release them so that they can go to the waiting pastures with honey like dew on them. The shepherds and the cowherds were preparing to leave and were releasing their animals from the sheds. The farmers were getting ready to go to their fields to guard the birds and animals from doing any harm to their ripening wheat crops. In an atmosphere filled with mist, a mystic sat under a tree. Nearby, there was a well out of which the rising water vapor could be seen. It was as though the earth was offering the incense to the infinite sky. But for the ordinary, the water vapor showed the intensity of the cold. This biting cold had very little effect on the mystic. Two of his companions also sat, playing on the musical instruments, accompanying him with his ethereal voice, singing the glory of the art of listening. The warmth spreading from his song made the companions oblivious to the cold. Suniye siddha pira surinata, suniye dharati dhavala akasa, suniye deepa lova patala, suniye pohina sakai kalu, nanaka bhagata sadavikasu, suniye dukha papa kanasu. Through listening alone, the Siddhas, Pirs, Devas, and Indra exist. Through listening alone, the earth and the sky stand. Through listening alone, the islands, plains, and the nethers move. Through listening alone, the death does no harm. Nanak says, the devotee always remains blissful, and through listening alone, the misery and sin get destroyed. The person was Guru Nanak Dev. A fakir was seen approaching this threesome. His clothes were dusty, his hair and beard dishevelled, and his face wore a tired look. Obviously, he had travelled all night to reach the place. But most significant aspect of his personality was his eyes, aflame with an unknown thirst that appeared to have bothered him for lives. Looking into the serene face and the eyes of Nanak Dev, which were full of love, he said with an urgent voice, I have heard that if you want, you can reduce me to ash in a moment and recreate me in a moment. You have the power over creation as well as destruction. This is a miracle. I do not believe it, but I want to see if it's true. When those pools of compassion looked into the eyes of the fakir, they saw that the man was sincere and he had not at all come there to test. It was not an idle curiosity either. The man was a seeker with a great thirst for godliness. He saw the fire of a gambler in those eyes, ready to gamble everything just to learn. Nanak Dev asked him to come near him and sit. Then he said, close your eyes and sit quietly. I will demonstrate what you aspire so much. The sun rays were slowly dispelling the mist and spreading warmth. The two companions of Nanak Dev were also surprised, for he had never ever demonstrated any miracle. They were aghast and were totally alert. The fakir was not afraid. There was a childlike simplicity and trust in his posture. He became totally empty from within. It is said that everything in the surrounding region was charged as though in expectation of a great event. Nanak Dev too closed his eyes and kept his hand on the head of the fakir. Nanak Dev uttered the sacred sound of Om. The story goes that the fakir was reduced to ash. The saint uttered more Om and the fakir was created again. If we go by the story, we miss the great truth. Though it is apparent that the physical body remained, the process must have taken place inside. The man, in his innocence and complete trust, had made himself really quiet, and the silent sound created within a mood of pralaya or dissolution, and he remained in shunyata or nothingness. In other words, there was nobody inside and only listening was there. The fakir, his aspiration, dreams, and the internal dialogue was reduced to ash. When Nanak Dev uttered the Om in a state of nothingness, the fakir came back to his senses, but it was no more the same man. A new man, a totally transformed man was there. It no doubt was a great miracle, the transformation of man. Most, if not all the time, the art of listening eludes us because there is a perpetual internal dialogue going on in our head. When something is said, immediately the mind starts comparing with the store of knowledge within. In fact, it is not only with the ears but with all the senses. So, when Nanak Dev uses the word suniye, he means listening to the world as it is and not as you want it. If and only if we are able to keep aside all the preconceived notions when we come in the contact with the world, we succeed in listening. Mahavir Jain, the 24th Tirthankara, has suggested that such listening is one of the methods for achieving Kaivalya. He used to say that one has only to become a Shravaka or one who has learnt the art of listening. There is a beautiful mythological story. The 7 notes, Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni, wanted to meet and listen to a perfect singer. They went round 3 planes, the netherworld, the earth, and the heaven. But since they knew the intricacies of music, they found some limitations or the other in each and every singer or musician. Frustrated, it is said, they approached Brahma, the creator. He said that Mahadeva was a perfect singer. Gladly, they went to Kailasa, the abode of Shiva. The great god said that he would sing willingly, but he could do so only in front of a perfect listener. The notes were in a fix, as then they had to search for a perfect listener. When they appealed to the great god himself, he smilingly took the name of Vishnu. They approached Vishnu and appealed to him to come with them to Kailasa for listening to the music of Shiva. The Lord happily went with them. 2 seats were arranged, one in front of the other, for the great gods. The notes sat on the both sides watching the concert. Shiva started with Alapa, the introduction to the raga. It was observed that Vishnu was in rapt attention, so much so that his eyes had got fixed and the body had become like a statue. As the raga got developed, Vishnu's eyes started watering as though as that raga had the mood of compassion. When the tempo was increased, Vishnu started melting, and at the climax there was neither Vishnu, the listener, nor Shiva, the singer, but there was only pure music. the singer as well as the listener had merged into sound, or rather, they had become the sound. This is what happens between Guru the preceptor and Shishya the disciple. The Buddha has pointed out that the flame only jumps on its own from a burning lamp to a lamp ready to burn without any effort of either lamp. In this process, there is absolutely no change in the host lamp, but yes, there is transformation in the guest lamp. Similarly, the enlightened Guru does not do anything, and the disciple only waits patiently, remaining totally receptive till he catches the infection of enlightenment. In this sense, the work of the disciple is to empty himself of all vasanas. The story under discussion is one of the most beautiful and important stories, if not the most important, wherein this scripture transcends the barrier of gender which continues to plague the field of spirituality, especially in our country, that only man is eligible for spirituality and it is the woman's duty to look after his needs while he strives for mukti, and that her mukti lies in her husband's mukti. This erroneous notion is shattered by this story. Of course, this lofty story is not required for a thinking mind, which is mandated to take up the study of the scripture, which helps in transcending mind itself. And gender is only a differentiation at the level of body. It has much more to offer for a seeker. Sage Vasishta continued his teaching when he blessed Rama to be like the great Shikidwaja who had annihilated his mind. The disciple in Rama appealed to the sage to throw more light on the life of King Shikidwaja, who was absorbed in ever-expanding bliss. The Muni obliged. King Shikidwaja was born in Dwapara Yuga in the 7th Manvantara. He was a just, pious and charitable king. His wife was Chudala, a pious and devoted queen who was a fit companion to the king. They lived in perfect happiness, peace and harmony. Having mastered all branches of knowledge, they spent their youth in performing all duties in perfect unison, and that showed in their mental and physical health. As the years glided past, so did their youth like water from a broken pot, and the middle age fell upon them like the snowflakes on lotuses of a pond. The desires which they nurtured in their youth began to decrease like waters in the autumn. In unison, they began to contemplate that the body, senses and mind are ever changing, that one has to reach such a state which is unchanging and expansive, and that such state cannot be achieved by those who are plunged in mundane existence. Therefore, they concluded that Adhyatma Dhyana alone is the cure for the disease of rebirth. With this conclusion, they started living a life of meditation and practical spirituality. They would associate themselves with the wise to learn the essence of the Shastras. The Shravana or listening was obviously followed by Manana or contemplation. There are 3 stages in Jnana Sadhana, the method of Jnana: Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. The first 2 steps are taken with enthusiasm and energy. A truth seeker heard or read revolves in our a truth either heard or read revolves in our mind for a while. We discuss it and convince ourselves intellectually, and perhaps are even able to convincingly express it either through lectures or ink and paper. But then it is only an intellectual pursuit, and at the most, a good hobby or pastime. It does not take us anywhere. On the contrary, It may even do harm, as one may develop an air of superiority over those who are not as articulate. While the truth is that one is at the same level with only a little more information. This can easily be known because when other things come in front of us, especially if the interest is only intellectual, the truth heard and discussed leaves us like the effervescence in an opal bottle of soda. This happened with Shikidwaja as he got involved with his kingship. But in the case of Chudala, the interest was really deep. So, instead of keeping the wisdom learned from the wise at the intellectual level, Chudala started doing nididhyasana or meditative reflection of the truths they both had heard and discussed with the wise. Muni Vasishta now entered into the methodology of nididhyasana in just 9 shlokas as he continued the narration. By keeping her mind away from all occupations and allowing it only to do samyagavekshanam or the internal observation, Chudala resolved that she was going to understand herself by analyzing who she was in reality without seeking any outside help, all by herself. That she would trace out who it was that was having the delusion that I am the psychophysical entity consisting of the body, mind, and intellect. The first and the obvious question was, am I the body? Because most of the time and most of us take ourselves to be the body having a particular shape and form. With the question, she started observing the impermanence of the body through its ever-changing condition and its total dependence on karmendriyas, the instruments of action for its very existence. But the karmendriyas too are gross, as they too are parts of the body. They definitely move, but are not apart from the body. She then observed that the jnanendriyas, the instruments of knowledge, are subtler than body and karmendriyas. But then she discovered that they are totally dependent on manas, like the road rolling stone, moving only because of the controlling rod and the power of men rolling it. Day in and day out, our senses come in contact with the outside world through the 5 senses. Thousands of stimuli hit them, but only a few get registered in our mind, while the rest are just ignored. Then going behind the manas, responsible for gathering the sense data, she discovered that manas also depends totally on nishchayatmika buddhi, the instrument responsible for decision making and analysis, like a stone appearing to move the string and the finger while rotating. In other words, only those stimuli which are acceptable to buddhi enter our consciousness and remain as knowledge. Chudala, reaching the level of buddhi, realized that even the buddhi is dependent on the ahankara for its determinative power. And the ahankara, which empowers the buddhi like the dam, which is responsible for the water to flow into canals. So, in comparison to the buddhi, Chudala realized that her true person is ahankara. A little discussion will not be out of place at this stage. In Vedanta, antakarana or the inner instrument means the mind stuff in general. Manas is that function of the mind responsible for collection of sense data. Buddhi, the function of analysis and decision. Chittam, the activity of remembrance of past impression. They are not in any way separate entities, but just functions of the same faculty of the mind stuff. But the functions are very distinct. Over and above all subtler than all these functions, there is ahankara or the I do-ness. For example, I sense, I analyze or decide, or I remember. Most, if not all of us, are familiar to these facets of body-mind complex. But yes, we are not aware of them as Chudala was in a non-involved way. Transcending the buddhi, Chudala realized that even ahankara is without any essence and gross like a corpse, as it is derived from jiva. In fact, it is only a shadow of jiva without any original consciousness of its own, and is a created illusion like that of a ghost in the mind of a child who looks at a shadow on the wall. This is the penultimate stage in the Atma Vichara. When one transcends ahankara, one meets face to face, as it were, with jiva, which is a ray of pure consciousness coming from that reality. This jiva alone manifests itself as various functions of ahankara, buddhi, manas, jnanendriyas, karmendriyas, and body. Only in ignorance do we take these manifestations to be separate and independent. Chudala took the final plunge as she transcended even the jiva to discover that even the jiva is only an activity of manifestation and withdrawal. Like a child, not regulated by rules and regulations, it creates and destroys, projects and withdraws, or conceives the whole world of multiplicity. Even jiva is like a reflection in a mirror. Being an activity and a prana, it rests in the consciousness. It is again activated by the pure consciousness to cognize, perceive, or experience the three states of consciousness and to manifest itself as different functions of thinking. The moment she realized this, the jiva too melted into the pure consciousness, and she exclaimed ecstatically, "Oh, indeed I have found out. I have discovered the great truth. The jiva lives because of the supreme force behind it, which is the ever-permanent, all-pervading pure consciousness, the Self, the Atman." From the level of Atman, she could see very clearly that in spite of the activity of thinking and its subsequent delusion through the identification with the objects and the resulting happiness or misery, the jiva lives only through the power of consciousness, that even by choosing the gross manifestation and assuming the grosser body, the consciousness remains aloof as fire from water, that the self-created activity of mind through this process of manifestation or chetyonmukhata gets enlightened through the consciousness, that the reality is without any attributes and that it transcends all names and forms. There was this feeling of familiarity with this wisdom, as though she knew it all along, and it was only forgotten in the involvement and now remembered. Vasishta continued by saying that Queen Chudala, through such continual Atma Vichara, the antarmukhata and internalization of mind, enjoyed the reality, and remaining in that state went on expanding her consciousness. Her actions were meticulous, without any longing for their fruits. She was unaffected by the pairs of opposites and was untouched by desire and hatred. She thus became a receptacle of bliss, and her continual vichara or meditative contemplation and the resultant solidification of the Atmic experience brought about the radiance of her being even at the physical level, and she became like a soft creeper with fresh flowers. King Shikidwaja, noticing the glorious radiance that waxed day after day, year after year, and the form of his wife Chudala inquired as to how she had started reclaiming her youth and beauty, and how her mind had been blessed with tranquility, devoid of desire for enjoyment. Chudala replied that she had abandoned this universe with rupa or form, and arupa or without form, that is within the perception of the senses, as well as that which is beyond the senses. She had attained to the mighty and the incomparable one, which survives destruction of all beings, that she had cognized the substratum of all, that she had transcended all kinds of involvement and had come to enjoy the radiance and beauty. At this reply from Chudala, her husband sarcastically smiled at her and said that such words do not behoove her, who was like a slender plant, for it appeared as though she was claiming herself to have been enlightened, and enlightenment is not possible for one who is surrounded by luxury and affluence. And even the greatest of men have achieved the state only after giving up everything and prolonged penance. He told her that she was deluded like some people who, having not the courage to plunge headlong into a life of seclusion and effort, only imagining that lofty state. Laughing loudly, the king departed. Chudala only smiled compassionately at the king, who was still drowned in ignorance, characterized by duality and involvement with the physical universe. She only hoped that he too would come to understand himself and reach the state she had achieved. Yet, the couple continued to live together harmoniously and happily as before. Preserving her equilibrium of mind, the wife gained complete mastery over her desires. But there arose in her, through her own volition, an innocent and playful desire to be a walker of the sky. For this purpose, seating herself in a meditative posture, she retired to a solitary spot. After mastering the posture, she started the practice of taking the prana upwards. At this point, Rama asked Vasishtha to enlighten him as to how the siddhis or psychic powers like Akashagamanam or the art of walking in the sky, etc., might be developed after long and arduous practice. The sage replied that though Rama had interrupted him in the middle of the story of Chudala to know the details of some yogic postures, he would gladly tell him. First and the fundamental step is to divest oneself of all affinity for objects except those on which the mind intends to concentrate upon. This is followed by proper diet, an easy posture, purity of body and mind, knowledge of the essence of Yoga Sutras, and uninterrupted practice under the guidance of a guru. One should completely rid oneself of the anger, greed, attachment to objects, and hatred for others. If he observes the nature of the pranas and masters them, as a master his servants, their nature will enable him to rule the universe, to attain moksha as well as develop siddhis. Thereafter, sage Vasishtha proceeded to explain the finer aspects of the practice of pranayama, bandhas or neuromuscular locks, Mula Bandha, Udyana Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha, taming of the Kundalini Shakti, through which one can not only develop all the siddhis, but also keep away the diseases from affecting us. To which again, Rama wanted to know more about the origin and destruction of diseases. What followed was an excellent analysis of disease. The enlightened sage Vasishtha said that the pain that afflicts the body is called as vyadhi or secondary disease, while the vasanas afflicting the mind is termed as adi or primary disease. The present afflicted state is reached through the absence of transcendental jnana, want of control over the sense organs, and the perpetual desire and egoism in the mind. The delusion gets intensified through the forgetfulness through the causes just mentioned. With the growth of such delusion, the mental disease also grows like snow in winter. When the intense desires of the persons begin to manifest themselves externally and the ignorance dominate, they perform unhealthy actions, and these in turn breed bodily diseases. The body is subject to disease through such actions as eating of unwholesome food, living in unhealthy areas, doing things at unreasonable times, inflicting injury to oneself and others, association of the wicked, longing for improper things, evil desires, bad thoughts, the swelling and contraction of orifices of nadis in the joints, etc., and the interrupted flow of the beneficial pranas throughout the body. These internal causes flourish as the disease in the body. The body attracts effects to itself according to the nature of its countless affinities, good and bad, whether in the previous births or the present one. Continuing, Vasishta narrated the manner in which Vyadhi originate and are eliminated. The wise say that Adi has two subdivisions, Samanya or ordinary and Sara or essential. The Samanya include those which are incidental to the body, and Sara is the rebirth to which men are subject. If the primal causes, that is, the bad thoughts are destroyed, all diseases afflicting the body also vanish. But Sara will never end except with Atma Jnana, like the misapprehension of a serpent in the rope cannot be removed except through the discovery of the real rope. But those grievous diseases of the body which do not arise through the original cause can be overcome by mantras, medicine, and many means used by the men in the field of medicine. Rama wanted to know more about the mental diseases. Vasishta proceeded, when Manas is agitated, then the body also follows in its wake. And when the body is agitated, there is no proper perception of things that are in one's way, and prana flies from its usual path onto a bad road, staggering like an animal wounded by an arrow. Through such agitation, prana vibrates everywhere at an unequal rate instead of pervading steadily and equally. Consequently, the nadis are not steady and quiver. The pranas fluctuate, and the food settling inside the body amidst such commotion gets transformed into incurable diseases. Purification of mind through mantras and virtuous action is the sure cure for all mental diseases. The sage then proceeded to narrate the path of yoga for mastering the Kundalini Shakti, by which one can achieve the siddhis like flying in the sky, remaining in water for long periods like fish, or entering other bodies. Resuming the thread of the story of Chudala, Muni Vasishta continued, having developed the siddhis, Chudala moved throughout the world. She tried her level best to convince her husband of the infinite peace and bliss pervading her, but without any success. Shikidhwaja could not in the least understand her and went on taking her as his wife. And since he did not know peace of mind, she did not initiate him into the secrets of jnana. Rama expressed a doubt. If, in spite of the sincere efforts by the enlightened Chudala, Shikidwaja failed to obtain jnana. How can others obtain it? Vasishta replied that one should have implicit faith in the words of the Guru and the Shastras. The disciple should have pure intelligence, to which Rama again interrupted, asking why the Guru's words are necessary if the disciple's pure intelligence alone is sufficient. In reply to this doubt, the sage narrated the following story. In a forest in Vindhya mountains, there lived a hunter of a great lineage. One day, he lost a cowrie shell while traveling across a grassy road in the forest. So he set out for searching it, filled with sadness. Having searched for it in vain for 3 days, he came across a chudamani, the gem with the luster of the full moon. But the hunter passed by the gem, a gem so valuable as to purchase 7 worlds in his anxiety to recover the lost cowrie. Jnana comes to a man in due time through the initiation of Guru. When the mind is concentrated on one thing, there arises in it another kind of knowledge through Guru's grace which is not anticipated. The part of the story dealt so far describes in detail the process of Atmavichara or contemplation on the self. The method adopted by Chudala has been called as Upasamhara or retrieval. This is because only when the mind as such is at a very low level of activity, if the mind is strongly active, it has to be calmed down through tapas. Shankaracharya, in his commentary on Taittiriya Upanishad, explains the word tapaha as follows. Taccha tapo bahyantakarana samadhanam tadvarakatvat brahma pratipatte manasaschendriyanam cha hi ekagram paramatapaha tajjayah sarvadharmebhya sadharma para uchyate. Mahabharata Shanti Parva. That is tapaha, which quietens senses and antakarana as Brahman is achieved through it. Concentration of mind and senses alone is the supreme tapaha. This alone is superior to all dharmas, the supreme dharma. So says Smriti. Vasishta Chandrika, commenting on the mental posture of Chudala, says, Avyaprata tushni masina vyaprata va samuchittam vyaparam kurvanapi dhiya samatva vakshamana prakarana vicharayamasa. Withdrawing from all activity implies, with peaceful mind, and involving in activity means that appropriate activity helping in ripening the buddhi towards her Atman, she performed vichara. There is a great hint for persons with relatively calm minds. Shankaracharya uses the word samadhana, which means allowing the mind to calm down while not doing anything, by remaining sakshi, an uninvolved witness. The Vasishta Chandrika clarifies it further about directing such a calm and composed mind towards oneself. If one combines both these hints, one gets the methodology of vichara. One begins with, am I the body? And gradually proceeds within. However, one must clearly know this directing of the mind is not thinking, but being at various levels of body, senses, mind, etc. For any thought is always outgoing, although it is about something. This has been beautifully portrayed through the experiences of Chudala. Just after her explanation on realizing herself, Chudala sees that grosser facets like mind and body get manifested due to Chetyonmukhata, the tendency for activity in the consciousness. The antidote for this process of manifestation has been suggested by Vasishtha through the word antarmukhata, or directing the conscious inside. This internalization of consciousness helps in transcending the grosser facets of one's being. For example, when one is at the level of senses, one clearly sees the grossness of the body, at mind, senses, etc. As already mentioned elsewhere in this study, one does not have to do anything to transcend the grosser facet. One has to only delve deeper into the subtler facet when one sees consciously that all the grosser activity of the facets is totally dependent on the pure consciousness for their very existence. The process of being on the subtler plane by withdrawing the involvement from the grosser plane has been called as upasamhara, or withdrawal. Again, the process of being on the subtler plane by withdrawing the involvement from the grosser plane has been called as upasamhara, or withdrawal. Another aspect of human mind has been clearly mentioned, that unless one has completed the transactions at the grosser level of existence, one cannot possibly appreciate the subtler aspects. This has been shown by the question Rama asks about the siddhis or diseases after the graphic description of the methodology of vichara. According to Maslow's hierarchical theory of motivation, higher needs cannot be understood by persons whose lower needs are not fulfilled. Maslow hypothesizes the needs in the increasing order as psychological, hunger, thirst, physiological, hunger, thirst, etc., safety, security, love, belonging and sharing, self-esteem, status or power, and self-actualization, personal achievement based on higher value system. Vasishtha, who had achieved the self-actualization, understood this well and answered the queries of Rama patiently and in detail. The story of Kirata, the hunter, illustrates that the truth is available, whatever be the motivation to seek it. The Bhagavad Gita says this in one verse: Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktah shraddhayarchitumicchati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Whatsoever be the form any devotee worships in faith and desire, the same faith is strengthened and made unflinching by me. Here the word worship is not to be taken as a ritual, but as an act of desiring and hence continual thinking. Man turns his attention towards the higher needs either when they are fulfilled and there is satiation, or when the resulting anxiety, tension and pain become unbearable. As if to bring home this point, this sarga deals with the adhis and the vyadhis. The heart of this portion of the story, however, is the process of atma vichara as adopted by Chudala. No matter how thick the fog, it has to make way for the light of the sun and to surrender to the solar warmth. In the like manner, the fog of grosser manifestations and activity have to bow down to their subtler causes till every activity comes to a peaceful rest under the benign poise of Atman, or the truth or reality, because all of them are its manifestations and have their existence only in and through it.